Abused dog, paralyzed with fear, learns what true love is. The night was quiet, but inside the small animal's shelter, a soft whimper echoed through the halls. It came from the farthest kennel, where a small, frail dog curled into the tightest ball possible. Her thin body trembled with every breath, her ribs barely covered by a patchy coat of fur. She didn't sleep. She never slept. Every time her eyes closed, the nightmares came back. The other dogs barked, some excited, some anxious, but she stayed silent. She never made a sound unless she was forced to. Loud noises sent her into a shaking panic. The sound of approaching footsteps made her whole body tense. A hand reached out toward her would make her cry out, as if the mere thought of being touched was unbearable. In the dim light, her dark eyes darted toward the door as it opened. A woman stepped inside, moving slowly, cautiously. The dog shrank back until there was nowhere left to go. The walls of the kennel pressed against her, but she tried anyway, pressing herself into the cold, unyielding metal. Welcome back to PlotTwister. Before we unravel today's mystery, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you're always in the loop. She was used to this. People would come and go, stopping to look at her with pity in their eyes. Some had tried to get close, to coax her out of the corner, but none had succeeded. She didn't trust them. She didn't trust anyone. Humans had only ever hurt her. The woman knelt outside the kennel, resting her hands on her lap. She didn't speak. She didn't try to reach through the bars or push food toward her. She simply sat there. The dog's body remained stiff, eyes locked on the stranger, waiting. She had learned long ago that patience was the only way to survive. Minutes passed. The woman didn't move. The dog's breathing remained quick and shallow. Her muscles tensed, ready to flee if she had to. But the woman only sat, watching her with something unfamiliar in her gaze. Something that didn't feel like pity. The dog didn't understand. She didn't want to. Time dragged on. The shelter lights flickered. Somewhere in the distance another dog howled. The woman finally stood and walked away. The dog let out a shaky breath and curled up tighter. The next night the woman returned. The woman returned every night. She never rushed, never spoke, never reached through the bars, just sat, waiting. The dog watched her, always from a distance, always ready to run. She didn't understand what the woman wanted. Humans always wanted something, and when they didn't get it, they became angry. She had learned that lesson long ago. The days passed the same way. The woman came, sat, and left. The dog remained curled up, pretending not to care. But something was different. The shelter had always been a place of fear, a place where she hid from the hands that reached for her. But now every night as the woman sat silently, something unfamiliar filled the space between them. One evening the woman placed something inside the kennel. A blanket, soft and warm, folded neatly in the corner. The dog eyed it warily. She had never been given anything before. Nothing that wasn't used to hurt her. She kept her distance. Hours passed. The woman stayed, watching, waiting. When the shelter fell silent, the dog inched forward, nose twitching. The scene was different. It wasn't harsh like metal or sharp like chemicals. It smelled safe. She touched it with her paw, then pulled away. The woman didn't react. No sudden movements, no sharp words. Slowly, hesitantly, the dog stepped onto the blanket. The softness beneath her paws felt strange, foreign. She lowered herself onto it. Muscles still tight, ready to bolt at the first sign of danger. But nothing happened. The woman stayed still, watching from outside the bars. The dog closed her eyes just for a moment. The next day when the woman returned, she brought something else. A treat. The scent filled the kennel, rich and tempting. The dog's stomach twisted with anger, but she wouldn't move. She had learned better. Hands that gave food could just as easily take it away. The treat remained untouched. The woman didn't push. She placed it down and sat in her usual spot. Another night passed, another day of silence. Then the woman did something different. She reached out, just silently, just enough for the dog to see. But the movement was too much. The dog scrambled backward, pressing herself into the wall. A sharp whimper escaped her throat. The woman's hand retreated instantly. The dog trembled, staring at her with wide, fearful eyes. The woman whispered something too soft to hear. Then she stood up and walked away. The dog didn't move until she was gone. The shelter was quiet. The other dogs had settled in for the night, their soft breathing filling the space. But inside the small kennel, the dog remained alert, ears twitching at every faint sound. The woman was there again, sitting in the same spot she always did. She had brought another treat. It rested just inside the kennel, close enough for the dog to reach, but far enough that she would have to make a choice. The scent filled the space, tempting and warm. Her stomach ached with hunger. But she stayed where she was, watching, waiting. The woman didn't move. She sat with her legs crossed, her hands resting on her lap. No reaching, no forcing, just patience. The dog's eyes flicked toward the treat. The hunger gnawed at her. She took a step forward, hesitated, then took another. The floor felt cold under her paws. She stopped inches away. Her breath was quick, her muscles tense. Her eyes never left the woman's hands. Humans could be still one moment and cruel the next. The woman remained motionless. The dog stretched her neck forward, teeth closing around the treat. She grabbed it and retreated instantly, pressing herself back into the safety of the corner. Her body remained stiff, waiting for something to happen. But nothing did. The woman only watched, a small, quiet smile on her face. The dog chewed, the taste unfamiliar but comforting. The warmth spread through her, though her heart still pounded. Minutes passed, the woman still hadn't moved. Then slowly she lifted her hand, just a few inches, barely enough to be a threat. The dog tensed, her breath hitching. The hand hovered in the space between them, open, palm up. No sudden movements, no demand. The dog stared at it, her whole body frozen. A long, endless moment passed. Then something shifted. The dog inched forward just slightly. Her nose twitched. The woman didn't move. Another inch. The dog lowered her head, sniffing the woman's fingers. The scent was warm, familiar now. She hesitated. Then, just for a second, she let her muzzle rest against the woman's hand. Her body braced for pain, for something to go wrong. But nothing happened. The touch was gentle, soft, safe. For the first time, she didn't pull away. The dog didn't move for a long time. The warmth of the woman's hand lingered on her muzzle, unfamiliar but not unpleasant. She stayed still, her breathing shallow, waiting for the fear to return. But it didn't. The woman slowly pulled her hand away, giving her space. The dog watched her, unsure what to do. No one had ever touched her without pain following. But this was different. There was no force, no cruelty, just patience. The next night when the woman arrived, the dog didn't retreat as far. She still didn't trust easily, but something inside her had changed. She watched the woman with cautious eyes, no longer seeing just another human. A treat was placed on the floor. This time the dog didn't hesitate as long. She took a step forward, then another. The fear was still there, but so was something else. Curiosity. She ate without running back to her corner. The woman smiled but didn't reach for her. The dog noticed that now, how she never rushed, never grabbed. The memories of hands striking her, of voices raised in anger, still haunted her. But the woman was different. Days passed. The shelter felt less like a place of fear and more like something else, something safer. One evening, as the woman sat in her usual spot, the dog did something unexpected. She took a step forward, then another, until she was standing right beside her. The woman held out her hand again, and this time the dog leaned in, pressing her head against it. A slow breath escaped her chest. The warmth was comforting. The woman stroked her gently, fingertips gliding over fur that had known only pain. The dog stiffened at first, but then something shifted. Her muscles relaxed. She didn't pull away. The next night she let the woman touch her again. Then one evening she did something even more surprising. As the woman sat down, the dog stepped forward and curled up beside her, pressing her small body against her leg. The woman didn't move, barely breathing. The dog closed her eyes. For the first time she wasn't afraid. The dog lay curled beside the woman, her small body pressed against the warmth she had once feared. The shelter was quiet, the hum of the overhead lights the only sound. The woman's hand moved slowly, gently stroking the dog's back, her fingers barely skimming over the fur. The dog didn't flinch. She didn't tremble. She let it happen. A deep sigh escaped her chest, long and heavy, as if something deep inside her was finally loosening. The woman's touch moved up to her ears, rubbing her lightly, and then something unexpected. A memory. It came like a whisper buried beneath years of fear. A different hand, smaller, softer. A child's laughter echoing through the air. Tiny fingers stroking her fur. A warmth so deep it had once felt like home. It had been so long she had forgotten. The dog's eyes flickered open. Confusion washed over her. The memory was distant, blurry, like looking through a fogged window. But it was there. A time before the pain. A time when she had known love. She let out a quiet whimper, not of fear, but of something else. Something raw. The woman's hand paused for a moment, then continued steady and kind. The dog leaned into her touch, pressing closer. Her heartbeat, once a frantic drum of survival, now beat in a slow, steady rhythm. She knew now. She had felt this before. The next day when the woman arrived, the dog didn't wait in the corner. She stood, tail low, but moving ever so slightly. A flicker of trust, of recognition. The woman knelt down, the dog stepped forward. And then for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, she did something she had never thought she would do again. She rested her head in the woman's lap. A quiet moment passed. The woman's breath caught, her hands trembling slightly as they cradled the small, fragile creature who had once feared the gentlest touch. The past had tried to steal love from her. It had tried to convince her it wasn't real. But now she knew the truth. She had been loved once, and now she was loved again. What are your thoughts on the twist we uncovered today? Comment your ideas below. Make sure to like and subscribe for a daily dose of drama and mystery. See you later with another twist.